All right, Big Bang. Today is Tuesday. It's November 28th. Welcome to the Dog Walk presented by Barstool Sports. Here with Chief as always. Chief, Thanksgiving, great. I'm sure it was awesome. What else is new?
I mean, that's about it. It's cold.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I got a little bit of joy out of seeing Megan being proud of herself that she drove in the snow. It was flurries. So we got the Louisiana girl. Chaps is from Texas. So he's been through some cold things before. But in general, I think we've clicked over into winter. And I'm ready to see people start being like, oh, fuck, like this is bad.
Yes.
And then consequently feel tougher.
Yeah, I mean, we're recording it the day before. It's definitely cold.
Yeah.
It's fucking.
I'm also wearing a winter hat and my mittens. Eddie said these were yellow mittens on mid-show or dog walk last week. I can't remember which one. But they're not yellow. They're clearly tan, and they're awesome.
It's a little much to wear mittens during a podcast, but I guess.
They're great clapping mittens. I went to the Blackhawks game on Sunday, and I was disappointed that I didn't bring them just because I wanted to out cheer Tommy Hawk. He's got that big drum. I think I can go clap for clap with him as long as I got these mittens on.
Harry, it's a bit much, those mittens, right?
If you're outside, I think it makes sense.
Yeah, not inside. Correct.
I don't know. There's pneumonias going around that sometimes people get a little chilly in here. Harry had it.
What's inflammation in the lungs called? It's blanking on me right now.
Inflammation of the
bronchitis.
Lungs. Is that what that is?
I think that's what bronchitis is.
Never had bronchitis, so I didn't know that. But yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think it's bronchitis.
Bronchitis is a lung disease or a lung illness. Harry's got the Google machine going on this right now.
Yeah, inflammation of the lungs, pneumonitis.
Pneumonitis?
I don't
know. But yeah, one of those things. None of it's good.
No.
Yeah.
We should say, though, well, I hope your Thanksgiving was good. If you're looking to get back on track and get some ready-to-eat meals, you should check out Factor. Because if you want to be nutritious, if you want convenient meals, and you want to keep energized on jam-packed days, Factor is America's #1 ready-to-eat meal delivery service and can help you fuel up fast for breakfast, lunch, and dinner with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. You'll save time, eat well, and stay on track with your healthy lifestyle while tackling all of your holiday to-dos.
Yeah, this is one of those things. I've been living on leftovers since Thanksgiving, and the convenience of taking something out of the fridge, popping it in the microwave, me like that was delicious. I went through them. That's gone. So now I got to go to Factor. Factor's like that same experience, but the food is delicious. It's healthy. It's whatever you want. 2 minutes, zap it. You're good to go.
Yep.
Don't ever order late night food ever again. This is what you want. You want Factor any time of day. It's great.
This is it. Factor's new, fresh, never frozen meals are ready in just 2 minutes. So all you have to do is heat and enjoy. They got calorie-conscious options. You could try delicious dietitian-approved calorie-smart meals with around or less than 550 calories. They got protein boost with
that's
the
a key
Plus.
thing. I want to emphasize that too, because that portion control has always been a big problem for me. It's getting worse every year. So I think, as you're getting into the holiday season and then New Year's resolutions come around, you want to sign up for this now, and then you're eating the right amount.
You'll be good to go.
Yep.
Good to go. This November, get Factor and enjoy eating without the hassle. Head to factormeals.com/dogwalk50. That's and use code dogwalk50 to get 50% off. That's
huge.
Code dogwalk50 at factormeals.com/dogwalk50 to get 50% off. Huge.
That's a crazy deal.
It is. It's a great deal. All right, let's get into today. We're talking about the Prime Minister of Argentina.
Yeah, the newly elected guy. This guy, every time I see him, I can just R.I.P. Robin Williams, but he strikes me as a guy that Robin Williams would play in a movie or like a fictional character that Robin Williams would devise, because he's got those eyes, this hair. Have you seen a picture of him?
No, I haven't.
Okay, Harry, I sent you a couple videos, Harry. So I know we might not be able to play it with the music, so just have it on mute, the first one. Yeah, the top one there. And just mute it. So look at this guy's, he's got sideburns down to his chin. He's got insane hair, and what he's doing here is he's ripping off, he's got all these labels of these different government departments, and he just goes, afuera. Afuera, the Department of Education, afuera. Okay, all these, the Ministry of whatever, all these social development, afuera. Okay, that means it's out. I'm cutting everything. So he is He's like a radical guy. He calls himself a liberal libertarian, but he's basically gonna get rid of everything in Argentina, and like people in the media internationally are like freaking out that this guy is gonna start a movement. So it's just, every time he does, he is a crazy person, and like he's had the nickname El Loco since he was like a kid in school. Like he's always been like this larger than life personality, and now he's pointing at the camera. He's a crazy looking person, and he won this election in Argentina. It was just like last week or so by double digits. So it was like you look at like our elections, and this is kind of true of most places. Most places where you have like a democracy, it's pretty split down the middle. You know, it's like you win 51-49, 50.5, you know, to 49.5. It's always like a razor's edge margin. This guy won in a blowout effectively by modern standards, even though he is a crazy person. Okay. So like this is a guy who goes to his rallies, and you see him doing the afuera. He goes to his rallies with a chainsaw. Okay, as symbolism, okay? So he's got this thing that's like, Harry, if you want to pull that video up too, another afuera, and he has this like little like cartoon stuffed animal that looks like, I don't know, some kind of whale or something, but instead of like a horn coming off, it's got like a chainsaw, and that's become like his party's official symbol. Yeah, so he's riding in like a convertible with just like revving a chainsaw at the people. He looks like a madman, and he just leans into it to the point that he won. Like he is the president of Argentina.
Kind of looks like a gothic Cousin Eddie.
I like that comp too. Yeah. So I mean, and it's like, how does this, you know, this guy's look and like his background? People are like, where did this guy come from? So he, you know, it was grew up kind of poor, which is not uncommon in Argentina, but his mother was like a homemaker. His father was a bus driver, but he was always like he was known as like a very bright but like eccentric guy. By the late 80s, one of his main sources, he was like a semi-professional soccer player. Then he was in a Rolling Stones cover band where he was the lead singer of a band called Everest. So like he kind of just like kept his hairstyle that he had in 1989 with like this wild mop that you saw there with the long mutton chops, and just never changed. And then he became like an economist. He had a radio show, and he was an author, and he's always been proposing like these kind of radical, more right-wing ideas. And we could put, Harry, if you can play that one, we'll just get that out of the way too. This is a guy, he's on some, you know, local TV show, and that's the central bank of Argentina, and he's gonna beat the shit out of it like it's a piñata. Yeah. So okay, so he wants to get so I don't think I've ever heard this until I started researching this guy. One other country's done it, where he's like, we're just gonna get rid of our own currency, like the Argentine or Argentinian, I'm not sure which word it is, peso. He's like, no more. We're gonna get rid of the central bank. And you know how we always not lament, but we did that show about what happened in 1971. Where the U.S. dollar went off the gold standard, and there's been a lot of different problems with the economy since then. It's not like our currency is like some great valuable thing compared to what it was 20 years ago or 30 years ago. But he's like, we're going to get rid of our entire currency, and we're just going to use U.S. dollars. That's like his plan. He's going to call it dollarization of the Argentine economy, because he's just like, fuck our money. Like our money is basically worthless, which he's right. So we're complaining here, and rightfully so, about inflation, right? You always have a big talking point like, oh, our inflation's up 9%. It's it's crazy year over year that the things have gotten so bad. The price of eggs, the price of everything, all up. Argentina in September had their annualized inflation was 138%. 138% inflation. So that's hyperinflation. Their money really is worthless to the point that you can't plan anything, because if you spend your dollar it's like you spend it and it's or hold it, it's worth less and less and less every single day. Their dollar versus the American dollar, I think it's in like the last 10 years or 5 years, has dropped 858%. That's has devalued their currency. So you have this country, Argentina, 100 years ago was considered one of the richest countries in the world, like best economies. People were like projecting, if you go back and read things from like that time, that Argentina was going to be the first true international superpower from South America, because the United States had become like this industrial power that, you know, in North America, Canada to a lesser extent, and there really wasn't any in South America. And then they had this, similar to us, they had this wave of immigration, a lot from Italy, but from Europe, where people were like, you know, I'm from Palermo and I'm poor in Palermo. Should I immigrate to the United States or should I go to Argentina? And it was a legitimate question, because there are two big growing countries that had opportunities that just weren't there. And so Argentina grew exponentially, and they were like, holy shit, like they're going to be a world power. And then they were a very corrupt government, and they made a lot of terrible decisions. And basically ever since the end of World War I, it started dipping, and then the Great Depression, it really dipped, and then it came back up a little bit. Have you ever seen heard of the Perones? I mean, Madonna made a movie, I think it was in the 90s. She sang that "Don't Cry for Me, Argentina." Eva Perón and her husband, they were a dictator, and it was, you know, Argentina really was struggling. They became a democracy again in '83, and it's just been they've run that country's economy. Buenos Aires was, you know, the Paris of the Western Hemisphere, is what they call this beautiful city. It has collapsed to the point that 4 out of every 10 people in Argentina live below the poverty line. So I didn't know exactly what that meant, so I looked it up. The UN definition, and it's an international thing. The UN definition of the poverty line is $2.15 a day. So 40% of the population earns less than $2.15 a day, meaning that means you can't afford basic things like food, housing, you know, all that sort of thing, which is unbelievable for a country that does have one of the reasons why Argentina was more successful than other South American countries is because they're not so like covered by the Amazon rainforest. So they have great farmland. They have like those gauchos, like those South American cowboys. They had a meat industry. They had coal. They had a lot of things that they could export that made them so wealthy, and they just squandered it to the point that their dollar is really, it's worth nothing. So this guy's just like, fuck our own dollar, fuck our own banks. We're just going to tie everything to the U.S. market. And I guess people are saying a lot of the country is already kind of doing that. Like the population is like, well, I'm not going to give you $5, 5 pesos. Like, give me a real dollar and I'll sell you this loaf of bread. Because, you know, like the U.S. dollar is, for the most part, going to be more stable than the Argentine peso by a wide stretch. As I said, 858% decline. And then this guy, he was never in government until 2 years ago. He was just an author, like I said. An author. Oh, he was also a tantric sex coach. You know what that is?
I know Finch and American Pie did tantric.
Right. That's how everybody learned about it. So
that's all I know.
But he would coach people up on this. That was one of his jobs, is he was a tantric sex coach, and he would just have like he wouldn't even come. He would just like that's the thing. Like you have sex for as long as you can without coming. It's kind of counterintuitive. Not the way I like to do it. But so he's just like, he's a fucking wild card. And he like captured this, I don't know, this discontent in the country and has risen to power. And he is like a walking soundbite. Like a lot of people compare him to Trump, and like you'll even see hats that say "Make Argentina Great Again." Okay, and they say it in English, like it's the Trump style hat. It's in that like blue Argentine color that you see on their flag, their soccer uniforms. But it's like that's what they're mimicking. But I don't. There's a lot difference with him and Trump, but that's something that people are saying. Like he's just like this, almost like a cult of personality, where he just has captured like this spirit of like, enough of these politicians. We got to get rid of these people. They're ruining our lives. So when he comes in there and he's like, afuera, okay, like, which means out. Like, we're getting rid of all these things that just waste all their money, and they're out. So he's like, I will never raise taxes, and all these places are out. And he's it feels like when you hear economists talk about him, you have like some people are like, this is amazing, and other people are like, this is
really bad.
This could be an issue, because in order, like, if they're going to use the U.S. dollar, you have to have U.S. dollars, because your country still has, like, as a nation, has a ton of debt. Like, they have $44 billion worth of debt. They don't have 44 billion U.S. dollars. So it's like, if you get rid of the peso, then you have to be able to, you still have to be able to cover your debts with U.S. dollars. So it's like, do they even have it? And there's speculation. I saw, the name Steve Forbes, like Forbes magazine? Yeah. Shout out Tommy. He's trying to get in the Forbes 30 under 30. I hope he does it. But Forbes magazine is like after Steve Forbes, and he's an economist. And he was saying that he thinks that this guy is going to be great if he can actually enact these policies, because he thinks that it'll stabilize the economy. So they'll be able to, actually plan for the future, and you can make an investment in you can do financial planning in Argentina for the first time ever, because back, previously, you're trying to make sure you have enough money to eat. You can't really plan out anything. He also thinks that they'll drive foreign investment, because people will trust the economy, and that they'll be able to get paid, and that they'll be paid in a currency that is actually worth something, which the peso is not. So, and then if you slash all the government programs, and you get it dollars in, then it's like, it's kind of like an insight, like maybe you can actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a wild time over there, and a wild plan, but you're seeing more and more of this kind of take off, more of these candidates, and he's just the most wild one, because I don't think that I've ever seen a guy with that hair, those sideburns, openly a tantric sex coach, openly a guy who fucking hates the Pope. Okay, so like the Pope is, Pope Francis is, look at that guy. That's the president of a country. It's unbelievable. But Pope Francis is probably the most famous person, other than Messi, ever to, and Maradona, ever to come out of Argentina, and he calls him a disgusting leftist. It was just like openly, like he has no filter whatsoever, and he's trying something that has never really been tried before, to try to turn Argentina around. And so the oil industry, the energy industry in Argentina is owned by the government. He's getting rid of that. He's like, we're going to sell it. We're going to privatize it. Same thing with, like, they have major media companies. Like, we have PBS. Canada has the BBC. Canada has CBC. They have the big government. They're like, we're getting rid of that. We're getting rid of everything. And, like, basically having a yard sale as the economy, trying to turn this around. And if it works, I think it could, like, kind of trigger this kind of movement where it's like, hey, it worked. This is like an experiment on a countrywide scale to see if these policies that have never really been enacted anywhere, but have been talked about and theorized, would actually work en masse. So it's very interesting time.
Has Messi spoken about this guy yet?
I don't think so. I haven't seen anything. Trump congratulated him, and then, like, if you just Google him, Harry, look at the just click on all or news. Click on news. He's traveling, but, like, radical, like, you see all the shock package, you see all these things. Donald Trump, where it's like Trump admiring populists, where it's like the traditional media outlets seemingly hate this guy. He doesn't want to have dealings with China. Okay. He wants to, kind of lean into the West, but he is painted as this. He's a crazy person. There's no doubt about it. Like that look, the way he acts, the way he behaves, he's not like your normal politician. And they're saying part of the reason why he won is because the guy that he was running against was the Secretary of the Economy, right? So it's like Secretary of the Economy. It's like this guy, our dollar fell by 858% underneath your watch. So, like that, like everybody fucking hates that guy.
Yeah. So
it's very, it's a radical move by a country that has like Argentina's going bankrupt. Like I feel like you see a headline about that like every 7-8 years. Like they just went through this again like 5 years ago where they defaulted on their loans and then. He just says what's on his mind and goes for it. But I don't think. See if you can pull up Milei, Argentina, Messi.
I just tried to Google some stuff. It didn't look like anything showed up.
He's in Miami now.
Yeah. No, I mean, I assume like this might be a dumb question, but I assume it's a good thing if other countries get on the dollar.
For us?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I tried to look into that. Like I'm hardly an economist to say the least, but I don't know. It's always been we have been the standard issue currency for forever, and that gives us a lot of power because in a sense every country's currency is tied to ours, and we've done an episode on that before too. But there's a difference between being tied to and actually physically using it. So like you'll go to pay for something in Argentina, and you will just use like $100 bill with Ben Franklin on it. Be like, thanks very much. So like there's no like like they had something called like we have the greenback, they had like blue notes or they called it something blue. They're just going to get rid of all those and stop printing them. And it's just like your standard tender, your legal tender. It's not like you go to an exchange rate or something like that. It is like I'm going to the store to buy beer, whatever, and I'm paying with United States dollars. That's just going to be the only currency, the only legal tender
allowed.
Yeah.
Man, that's going to be a fucking pain in the ass transferring all that shit over.
They're saying a lot of people are already doing it. So that's like one of the comments that Steve Forbes made is that he's saying like a lot of people in Argentina are already doing this kind of black market style where they're doing it, and that there's probably more U.S. dollars in Argentina than people realize, where it's like they store it in bank accounts, like offshore bank accounts, or literally in their mattresses. Like they're just using they're already using U.S. currency to kind of like do it, in a black market sense, but that's different than, having it just be legal tender. And I was reading this article. This woman was looking for property in Patagonia and can't get a mortgage. Okay. Can't get a mortgage. Like none of that. So you just come down and I think she brought like a backpack full of $100 bills. Like she just got like $90,000 in cash and bought like this beautiful like ranch place in Patagonia because you don't want a mortgage because nobody trusts the banks there anyway. So if you want to do business in Argentina, you're kind of doing it with U.S. cash already, and they want more dollars in the system, and the speculation is they already have a ton. But I think it's either gonna help things and balance things, or it's going to be a disaster. And I think this guy's he's made a lot of enemies already. And while he won the popular vote by a wide margin, which you could argue is kind of a referendum, like, hey, the people want to give this a shot. His party, like the Libertarian Party, only has 14% of the Congress. So if you're going to actually get some of these policies passed, there's still a democracy. So it's like you do not have anywhere close to the majority in the legislative body that you would need. And it's like afuera. Well, it's like you're signing, there's a lot of people in the government there who are like, I guess I'm signing up for unemployment if we vote for these things, like the Ministry of whatever, which those are, I don't know exactly how Argentina's work. Those would be executive branch places here, but to cut all of those would typically the government doesn't vote against the government. So we'll see if he can actually put these things into power. And people are like, oh, did you really mean that stuff? And he's like, yeah, like, yes, like it's not like the dollarization thing is non-negotiable. So I I started looking at property in Argentina myself, just see if if can we get this to work. But my gut says that it's not going to work.
It's a big risk.
Yeah.
Right? But if things were that bad before, I mean,
4 in 10 people below the poverty line is absurd.
And that's the thing, though. Like, you don't think it could go worse, but it could always get worse.
Yeah, it could
But
always.
then again, like, people are tired of the status quo, I'm sure.
I think that's like the underlying thing that people are. It's like a populist movement. Like this guy.
Like, hey, like, what do we got to lose? Like, let's try it out.
It sounds like, when Trump was running in 2016, he had that drain the swamp. And it's like, what does that really even mean? And how do you do it? And then people don't even care. It's just like there's an acknowledgement that there is a swamp. And I'm going to vote for the guy who says to get rid of it, and like an outsider. So this guy, like I said, had not been a lifetime government person. He got elected to some office in 2021, and then he said that his dead dog, came to him and told him to run for president. So he did. That's what Javier Milei said. Okay, and then it was like, who are your political advisors? He's got 4 cloned English Mastiff dogs. And he's like, these are my political advisors. so that's what I mean. Like, I've never, like, the guy, I'm glad he exists. I'm very curious to see how all of this plays out. Like, it's something I will be like following with some, regular, maybe check in every couple of months of what's going on in Argentina. But I'm glad it's not happening here, kind of thing. Like, I want to watch it from afar and not have any skin in the game. But he is a fucking wild card, and I find him very entertaining.
Do you know what their term limit is?
That's a good question. Let me see if I can pull that up. I think it's 4 years, but it's like they're such a shit show that I think they like overthrow and kick people out all the time.
Oh, well. 4 years.
4 years, okay.
With possibility of immediate re-election for one more term.
Okay, so you can only do 4 years?
A president who has served 2 consecutive terms may be elected again after
so he can do 12.
One term. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So
I think.
So 12 years total, which I feel like, I don't know. It feels like a long, not 4 years is always sounds like a long time, but it's not a long time to like radically change an entire country and an entire economy. So we'll see. Like, I don't know. Like they've been such a shit show, and like the Peronism and those people. Like if you really look at the history of that, like going back to like 78, and like their CIA was involved in that kind of, but they had killed 30,000 of their own people. They lock them up, and it's like, well, they call them like, there's a Spanish word for it, but basically it's like the missing, and it's like they would just snatch you up and throw you in jail like forever, okay, for being like a political dissident, for just disagreeing with the government. So they eventually, like, that group was ousted, and because they were like a military dictatorship, and then a democracy came in. They had a war with England in the 80s too. Argentina did.
I did not.
The Falkland Islands in 1986. Like there's these couple of islands, pretty big islands off the coast of Argentina, and they're like those should be ours, and England owned them. So they invaded, and then England's just like, what are you doing? And then England just came with their military and took it back in like, I don't know, very short period of time. So Argentina has had a wild history. And then while I was doing a little quick note, like while I was doing the research on this dollarization, there's one other country that has done it the way that Argentina has. It's Ecuador, and Ecuador did it in, I think, like late 90s, early 2000s. They've defaulted on their debts twice since making that move because they just don't have enough dollars. Now, Argentina's economy is 5 times the size of Ecuador's, so if you theoretically, if you tighten your belt and you get more investment and people start using that dollar, that you should be able to. You could make it work, but it's like I said, it's like kind of feels like the way it reads is kind of like an inside straight. Like you have to have a lot of things go right in order to make it work. But if it works, then you're sitting pretty.
Again, it may be dumb, but I really don't understand why like South America isn't looked at from more North American tourism. Like
I think it's kind of far. I think it's a long flight. Harry, look up flight time from Chicago to Buenos Aires. Flight time Chicago.
Bad keyboard, Harry.
Yeah, it's a 13-hour flight.
One stop, yeah.
Would you rather,
Yeah,
if
that's true.
would you rather go to London in 7 hours or Buenos Aires, where, I mean, I feel like you and I can go there. We can just buy the whole country. It's the way that bring a bag of cash. They supposedly have like awesome pizza down there.
Really?
Yeah, because they had I think it's something like 60% of their population traces their heritage to Italy. So where a lot of countries down there are like Spanish or indigenous or whatever, they have a shit ton of Italians, and then they also have a lot of descendants of Nazis down there too. Did you know that?
Well, wasn't it rumored that that's where like Hitler ended up possibly?
Yeah, and I mean Adolf Eichmann. There's a good movie about it, but Adolf Eichmann was like one of the masterminds of the SS and the concentration camps. He escaped Germany and was living under a different name in Argentina, and like the Israelis, like their intelligence, found out, were spying on him down there, arrested him, threw him on like a flight, and took him back to Israel to stand trial, where I think they hung him. And so there were a lot of like high-ranking Nazis. They're like supposedly like Hitler had if you believe Hitler didn't get out, Hitler has a house in Argentina. So I think I blogged that I think in like 2019, where Hitler's like getaway, which looked spectacular Patagonia, because the climate in the look at Wake Up with Did You Know? Yeah, August of 2019.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's like this giant. Look at that place.
It's
Beautiful.
like a log cabin.
Yeah. But, they have the Andes Mountains down there, and like the southern part, as you get like, it's the climate is very similar to Germany's. So it was like, yeah, if we're gonna go somewhere, we know we're not gonna get extradited, and we can run away. And then there's a lot of people of German descent down there too. Supposedly there's entire towns in Chile and Argentina in the Andes where like the spoken language is German. Like, because so many of them settled there, created these new towns out of nothing.
It's a fucking big country.
It's big, yeah.
Yeah, that in Brazil is fucking...
Brazil's so huge, but they don't have, like, a lot of usable land because it's all covered with the rainforest. And it's like they're using, like, that LiDAR thing to, like, make discoveries of, like, these ancient civilizations back then. But, then they're chopping a lot of it down, unfortunately, but there's just not a lot of places to live. So most people in Brazil kind of live along the coasts, which I guess is true of most countries, but they have people in there, like they know the tribes are in there that have had no contact with modern humans, because it's just like you can't really get to them, and they just live in the Amazon jungle.
Pretty fucking fascinating continent.
I've always been fascinated because it feels like it's like an element of they're in like a perpetual Wild West is what it seems like from afar.
But it feels like there's potential there too.
Totally. But I've always wondered that about like Mexico too, and really all of these. Like if you look at the New World, the Western Hemisphere, the only two countries that have made it work and where they have stability, economic prosperity, are us in Canada. Mexico is kind of shit. They have a lot of problems. All of South America has had a lot of problems, and there's this guy Francisco Bolivar. He was like the founder. He was like educated, in Europe and I think in the United States too, where he like kind of led the liberation of the entire South America. And they had for like a brief period, most of South America, not including Brazil, but all like the other countries and like up into Panama and places like that were all one country. And then it kind of split apart piece by piece, but he led the liberation. But I think, there should be like a case study, and I'm sure there are, but it feels like they don't have the same respect for the rule of law. Where it's like, Colombia, it's like, hey, we got these drug lords and we're a narco state and there's nothing you can do about it and everything is corrupt. And Argentina had massive corruption and Chile was a dictatorship for a long time. And, but Chile is probably doing the best, it seems like, of all those countries now. But yeah, seems like a place with so much potential, but it can't quite. Like it looked beautiful too. It looks like you're saying, like you're surprised there's not more tourism. It is a long flight, but it is.
People go to obviously people go to Mexico.
Yeah.
Seems like people are going to Medellin. Obviously people go to Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
So they hit that northern area.
Right.
It's just.
I'd love to go. We should want to start a travel show.
Maybe Milei will send us down.
Yeah. Hey, Javier.
Yeah, let us know.
But he would probably be like, "No, you pay for it yourself. Our government will not pay for it." So we'll have to get Portnoy on it. Sell some T-shirts. Send us to Argentina.
Yeah. All right then. Thanks, Chief.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks everybody for listening. Thank you for watching. That's it for today. We'll be back tomorrow with a free swim. We'll see you then.